Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Healy. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of the busy schedules to be on the TAC call. Gather around, little children. I've got a story to tell today. Okay, so today I was writing down some notes of what I wanted to cover on the call today. I was talking over with Stacey a little bit. Wrote some things down, and I think sometimes you guys know that facts tell, stories sell. And basically, I want to get across an idea, kind of a philosophy, kind of something that's almost written in stone, okay? And I want to tell you a story right now. You ready? All right, so here we go. So there was probably quite a few years ago, there was a guy that actually worked in a factory, and this gentleman, basically, he had worked there for quite a few years. He had a family, he had a wife, he had a couple kids, and he would get up every morning diligently, and he would go to his job, and he would do what they asked him to do. Pretty much the mind-numbing activity of something that was repetitive over and over and over again in the factory that he worked at. And he made just enough money to basically survive and so on. Well, he had actually after being there for quite a few years, he just kind of felt that he really wasn't fulfilling his passion and so on, and he didn't really know what he wanted to do. And he started kind of reading some books and starting to see some things. And on the way home from work one time, he actually had driven by a farm, and he noticed that this guy was out there, and it was kind of the middle of the afternoon, and the guy was out there farming. And he noticed he himself was a guy that he loved the outdoors and so on. Hold on one second.
All callers are muted.
And what had happened was, after this, the guy goes out there, and he saw the farmer. He actually got an idea in his head. He'd actually swung by. He decided to, after 2 or 3 times driving by this way past work later, he decided to swing by, and he asked this guy a little bit about farming, because it just kind of piqued his interest. And so the guy, he swings in there, and he talks to the guy, and he becomes friends with him. Well, he kind of learns a little bit about farming, and this guy ends up, the guy tells him, the farmer that owns the place, tells him a little bit about what he's done and over the years with the things he's learned and so on. And he said, well, if you ever decide to become a farmer, go ahead and anytime you need anything, let me know. So after a little more time, the guy goes back to the factory job, and he's still working that. He decides to put a little money aside, and he wanted to become a dairy farmer. And so he realizes that this is going to be his way out of his dream, of his job, and he can now control his own shots and do whatever he wanted to. So the guy goes and takes some of his money and he invests it, and he goes and buys a small farm. He talks, tells the family. Wife obviously reluctantly decides to do it, and because she knew that he was going to end up giving up the security, or what appeared to be security, of the job. But the guy deep down said, look, I'm watching the kids grow up. I'm hardly here any time, and I want to do something on my own. So, reluctantly and kicking and screaming, the wife kind of agrees that they could do that. So what the guy does is he ends up learning a little bit about farming, and he decides that the way he wanted to do it was he was going to go dairy farm, right? So, what the guy does is he puts some money together, and after he buys the farm, he buys a few head of cattle. And basically some dairy cows. Dairy cows are pretty much the black and white ones, or the skinny brown ones, in case you're not familiar with those. So it's a picture of they don't actually eat the ones that you see on the Chick-fil-A commercials. But anyhow, so the guy gets the farm, right? Well, what's nice is he gets a few cows. He just has a small handful of cows, I think it was 15 or so cows, that he amassed over a period of time. And what he was doing is he was milking these cows, and he was selling them, or selling the milk. And every day he would be diligent with the cows, and he would out there and he would feed them like he's normally supposed to, and the cows would come out. But one thing he noticed, that some cows produced a little bit of milk, some cows produced no milk. He actually had a few cows that barely even gave a quart of milk. He couldn't really figure out why. And then he had a couple cows that really produced, quite a bit, a few gallons a day during the 2 periods that they would milk these cows every day. So he ends up starting to make enough money to where he's covering all his expenses. In fact, they had to tighten up a little bit in the beginning. And he realized that, he was kind of stuck. After a couple months, he was stuck in his, with the income that was coming in. He had a certain amount of cows, and that was kind of it, but he couldn't really do anything else. So he decided he wanted to figure out, what else he could do to produce stuff. So he went and talked to the old farmer, the guy that originally kind of intrigued him and gave him the idea, and goes to the old farmer and starts telling him a little bit about his stories. And the old farmer's sitting on the porch with this guy, and he's kind of rocking back and forth. He's eating a little piece of grass and, listening to him. And he says, well, some cows are going to do this, some cows are going to do this. And the guy was saying, listen, I really want to get this business. I want to get it bigger. He goes, I see what you have. You've got all this stuff. I've noticed that you not only have money, you've got some nice vehicles here, you've got a big house, and so on. And he said, what's your secret? And he said, what's the secret to your success? And the guy, he says, well, I want you to listen close to this, because what I'm about to tell you is really the secret to my business. And the guy says, oh my gosh. So he's all excited about this. So he sits back, or actually sits up. He's got his hands on his knees, and he's listening to the old farmer tell him. And the old farmer's looking out over the kind of his fields. He sees all of these cattle out there, and he looks the guy in the face, and he says, listen, if you want more milk, you got to get more cows. If you want more milk, you got to get more cows. And he kind of sat back and continued to rock. And he ended up telling this guy, and the farmer went home, and he says, here's what he finally figured out. He says, some cows will produce a little bit, some will produce none, and some will produce a lot. And what the guy then did is he finally realized that he had to not only, it wasn't about trying to pull out more production out of his existing cows, because some cows were just, that's the way they were going to do it, but he finally realized that if he wanted more milk, he had to go get more cows. So what the guy did is he ended up then taking some of the profits, investing them in there, going out and finding more cows, and then actually after he had enough cows, some of his own cows, actually he had bought the cows, and they started to reproduce, have babies on their own. And it wasn't within a couple years, this guy had one of the largest farms and ranches in the area that he had, and basically they were producing more milk, and it wasn't that each cow had produced any more milk than the original small set of cows he had, but what had happened is he just increased the number of cows he had, and the production flow of all of that, and and he had increased some of his learning about cows, how he could feed them properly, how he could nourish them. They ended up producing more milk than he could ever possibly produce any other way. So, all that being said, hopefully you guys understand the analogy that I just told you through that story. What's funny is I got and it kind of piqued I heard that story quite a few years ago. I can't even remember if I read it in a book or somebody spoke it out on a stage or wherever, but it really got me thinking, because a lot of times in the network marketing business, you can really get into what Jim Rohn would say, I wouldn't sign up for that class, trying to analyze, and I'm as bad as anybody out there, analyze why some people do some things, why some people don't, why some people have bigger checks, how do I get more people on my team, and so on. And I noticed across the board, and I finally came to the realization that if you want more milk, you got to get more cows. That's one of the reasons after that, that epiphany, that I decided to learn how to become a very good recruiter. It's not even just about recruiting, it's about learning introductions properly. You guys know we've taught those on the calls. And I realized also that some people are going to do some people are going to do none, and some people are going to do a lot. And you can't, you will go crazy if you ever try to figure out which cows are going to, and I obviously jokingly say that with people, which ones are going to produce the most activity. There are plenty of people where if you bought cows before, there will probably be plenty of cows that look good on the outside. They look like they've got all the attributes that just don't produce any milk. And then you've got some that you get involved, and they really just look like the average cow, but for some reason, that cow just puts out milk, gallon and gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons, and it produces a lot of money, okay? So that's what I'm telling you guys. And I want to encourage you with this, is you can always increase your numbers, okay? I focus, and you guys know that we've always talked, or we try to train you on, focusing on the activities that actually make you money. I think I heard Jeff Jackson on here. He and his brother Sidney were on the call a couple of weeks ago, and, what I noticed is just the way he spoke about the things that he was doing, in the fact that he was out there and they were just they were working through the people. They were looking for more people, and they were continually, introducing it to people. And people, some people said yes, some people said no, and then the ones that he did get in, he identified those people. That's exactly what's going to happen with you in this business, okay? Now, the other thing one more thing I want to point out to you, because I know I run out of time real quick, is this. One of the other greatest points, kind of principles that I had to learn was I understood that the wealth was actually outside of my comfort zone. The wealth was outside of my comfort zone. It's easy to surrender your life to things or what appears to be security with like jobs and everything like that. I made a bold decision. I was making okay money, and I was existing basically with my wife. At the time, we weren't even married at the time yet, with what I was doing in the bar business, okay? I made, you make $200 a night bartending in some, if you're in a good club, which is a lot of cash, right? But I realized that if I truly wanted success, I was going to have to get out of my comfort zone because I only have one life to live. I really realized that I'd been doing it for 8 years. I had nothing really to show for it. It was a secure way to go in and get some cash every week, but I had to ultimately get out of my comfort zone and make decisions. I had to burn my bridges. I had to go out there if I wanted to really produce something that was above normal, that wasn't normal. I mean, look around at all the normal people, that I was going to have to do that, and it was going to also take and require me to get out of my comfort zone. It wasn't like I really liked to go out and talk to people. I didn't understand really how to give presentations at the time. But I'd seen enough, and I'd understood that it became a numbers game. I'd watched enough people become successful in the networking industry that really, that kind of pinpointed the fact that if I went out there and actually worked the numbers, that the numbers would work. And I'd heard that story early on in my career that if you want more milk, you got to get more cows. I wish I would remember who exactly said it, but it doesn't even matter. But I did realize that those were some key principles. Those were some things that I understood that if I continued to work it, it was gonna really pay off. The good thing that you guys have and we have in common here is that we're involved in a company that has yet to go through the massive critical mass stage. We are on I believe the fuse has been lit. I believe that we are in the right place for that. But I do also believe that you're looking at right after convention, because there's going to be a realization for a lot of people that are in the business, but the business isn't in them yet, of what they truly have their hands on. And you're gonna see that the 80-20 rule is going to play out at its highest level, and now we have more of those 20%ers in the company. That 80% of the work is always done by 20% of the people. Some cows produce more, correct? What's going to happen is you're going to see that those people that decide to become 20%ers are going to snag up 80% or more of all of the revenue that's going to be generating by this company. And it's going to be in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that will be paid out, so you might as well be one of those people to do it. Understand also you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and if you just keep out there and you keep doing the activities that make you money, which is giving presentations, introducing people to what we do, the numbers will work in your favor, and you just stay consistent. The people that I see that are the earners in our business, you're looking at my own organization, are the ones that are consistent. That's it. That's the one thing they all have in common. Okay, they all have different personalities. They all dress different. They all drive different cars. They probably all have different pitches. But the number one thing that's in common with those people that are successful is they are consistent. So here's what I'm going to tell you guys. You can have as big a farm as you want. It completely is up to you. It's in your court. Obviously, the more cows you get, the more replication you can get. Some of them are going to have more babies than others. Some of them are going to produce more milk than others. And I know it was a very odd story this morning, but hopefully you got the point here, because it's just true across the board. And maybe I think I've related to this also. And last thing, promise, is I've been reading a book that came out, a friend of mine helped publish it, called The Greatest Networkers in the World. It's John Milton Fogg wrote a book called The Greatest Networker in the World, but this guy also talked him into writing a book called The Greatest Networkers in the World, where it profiles 25 of the best networkers out there, most of which I've personally met, or at least personally seen speak, and it goes through their brief, their stories, and guess what? Every single one of them pretty much has the same thing in common. They were nobodies at one time. They made the decision they were going to be somebodies. They stayed consistent, and they built the business. I mean, one of the funniest stories in there is a lady who, that was her rags to riches story, and she just kept diligently giving presentations. She would drive around to different places, give presentations, and one time she had said it was one of the worst meetings she ever had. She got stuck in traffic. She was a half an hour late to the hotel. There was like 30-some people that did show up. 60 had originally showed up. Over half of them left because she was late. People were pretty upset. Even through the presentation, she could tell she just wasn't into it, and so on. Peg figured it was pretty much the last one. At the end of the meeting, when she dismissed it because she rushed through it, there was one guy in the audience that actually came up and finally talked to her at the end, asked some questions. Guy had a real heavy accent, and she didn't know anything about it. But come to find out, within 5 years, that guy actually put over 500,000 brokers in her business. Okay, so you just never know. And those stories are repeated all through all of those, guys out there. So all that being said, let me unmute the line, say goodbye to you guys. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going here. So hold on one second.